Hi guys. So you guys probably want to know a little bit about me. So who am I? Well, one, I'm not the boy, I'm the girl. And that other guy, he's not random. That's my co-founder, Richard. But I'm the co-founder of a company called Tech Talent South, like Tim said. And at Tech Talent South, we do a couple of cool things, but our bread and butter is we teach adults in 8 weeks. We do an immersive program where we teach you to be web developers. You come out and you're able to, get a junior developer role or, launch your MVP. Along with that, we actually teach kids coding camps. And to tell you a little bit about what we do and how I really got involved in kids coding camps and programming in general, if you guys will indulge me, I'll tell you a little bit about my background and how I got interested in programming, because I certainly haven't always been a programmer. As a matter of fact, I haven't even been dangerous for a calendar year at this point. So about a year ago, I was still running a small company here in Charlotte called Little Idea. It was a product development company, and we did physical goods. So we did everything. We're a service-based industry, everything from, hey, you have an idea for a new iPhone case, and you want to prototype it, make some 3D prints, come up with packaging, marketing, etc. So we kind of walked you through that whole space, and I totally loved it. I mean, for me, I just love creating. So you can see my attraction to programming, right? I sat there and I thought, how cool would it be to have a skill where I can take a weekend, I can build out a new product, I can literally test it, iterate, tank it, start all over again, for what? The cost of, a domain and hosting? Pretty effing appealing, if I do say, especially coming from a physical product development background, where, I easily looked at every single person that came through our office door. We're looking at them, we're like, that's an awesome idea. Here's the catch. Are you ready to throw down about 6 figures just to see if your idea has legs? Hard to swallow. So, oh, sorry guys, hold on one second. So what did I do? I decided our company merged with a bigger company that does product development, and I sort of had a decision to make. Was I going to onboard with that company, or was I going to take off and do something on my own again? And clearly I'm standing in front of you, so you know what I did. So I took off to Chicago and abandoned my then fiance for 3 months, and I learned how to code myself. It was an awesome experience, and that's where I met my co-founder, Richard. So I went through an immersive program like we're doing now. While we were there, we started looking around, and the environment that this created, the ecosystem with all these developers coming up, was so interesting, and it was awesome, actually. And so, we kept talking about, wow, wouldn't this be cool to bring down south, where we're from, the areas that we care about? My co-founder's from Atlanta, and I'm from Charlotte. We want to grow the South and make it a tech hub. So you know what we did? We did it. Fast forward a few months later, and we started Tech Talent South. Now, that's all well and good, but what makes me qualified to tell you to learn to code, and better yet, teach your kids? Well, let me tell you a little bit about how we got started teaching kids. So the game plan was always to teach adults, right? I mean, that's really where the money is, and we wanted to see our graduates build companies together and do these really exciting things and join all these awesome startups. But we started thinking, how are we going to get started? So if we have a cone of honesty here, I'm going to be really transparent with you guys, but you can't judge me. So obviously I'm very business-minded, and I sat there and I looked at Richard and I was like, what if, kids are really cute. People really like kids. What if we toured around the Southeast and we tried to get free space, because again, people like kids, and we just taught little kids camps. And he's like, well, we don't know anything about kids. I know, but we can figure that out. That'll come, it'll be fine. So that's what we did. And we got free press, and it was really awesome. So now, about the kids. Why is it so important? What I was going to say, too. So after our first one in Atlanta, I said I didn't know anything about teaching kids, and we were really overwhelmed. We worried, hey, are these guys just going to think we're total nerds? Are we going to be able to teach them Ruby? Are we just going to be, demonstrating for a week straight? Are they going to glaze over and just ride around on the scooters the whole time? We really didn't know, and the reality is it was none of that. They were so engaged. We've had kids cry when they left the camps. We've been blown away by, what they're capable of. And you know what? It's obvious. Why wouldn't they be? These kids are born. I mean, I have no idea what this toy does exactly, but this is what a 1-year-old is playing with. They're surrounded by technology. For them, Programming is essentially a literacy. They know it from the day they are born. They know how to engage with these toys and all of these technologies. Now, what we want to show them is, while these are awesome, do you know what happens behind the scenes? It's not just magic. There's stuff happening on the other side. So we actually teach kids that, computers aren't really smart, right? It's the programmers that are smart. Computers are actually pretty stupid. So one of the examples we always use, it's pretty simple, but it really is effective, whether it's a 14-year-old kid or a 7-year-old. We do a peanut butter and jelly sandwich example. So we'll pretend, say, I'm the computer, and the kids are giving me instructions, and they have to tell me how to make a sandwich. So you can imagine how this goes. If you're a little Johnny, you're like, hey, yeah, put the peanut butter on the bread. So of course I run into a wall. I have no idea what peanut butter is. Put the jelly on the bread. Jelly's on the wrong side. We go all over this. There's food on the floor. It's a messy disaster, and it's a lot of fun. And it kind of shows them how detailed programming really is and how careful you have to be when you're writing code and reading it. Throw up these logos anytime we're talking about kids and they lose their mind. And I don't know how many of you know what the one on the right is. Do any of you know? Do all of you have kids that know? So I didn't know for sure until, of course, I started doing these. And yeah, apparently Minecraft is the jam. We have to turn off a lot of computers for those. But you know what you can tell a kid when they're talking about gaming? So simple to them. Wow, so you love playing these games? Do you want to be a consumer or do you want to be a creator? And the same stands for adults, right? Like if Da Vinci were alive today, I assume we can all agree he'd be coding. Kids too, so we want them to understand that not only can they engage with these apps, they can build them. They can create new games and new apps, which is really awesome. And whether you're talking about adults or kids, learning to code empowers anyone with the ability to initiate change, and that's arguably the most amazing characteristic about coding. So, a perfect example of this is, we have a guy coming to our next adult cohort in Atlanta. His name is Sam. He's a doctor, and he's from Ghana. And he's coming to the cohort because he's been really frustrated. Apparently in Ghana, the hardest part about getting medical care is knowing where to go. No one knows where the hospitals are or where the doctors are. So he's coming to the camp, and he's going to build out a simple app that geolocates all the different doctors and hospitals in Ghana. Not complicated. You can do it in 8 weeks. But we can all agree this can make big changes. It's awesome stuff like that that's happening. And of course, what we see with the kids is they have no fear. So, not only on so many different levels. I mean, you get a kid to run a Ruby program, especially if it's a guy, and it's Robbie's going to punch Johnny in the face 5 million times. No adult would ever hit enter on that command because they would be terrified their terminal would blow up their entire hard drive with that. But kids just aren't afraid. If they see a problem, they're okay tackling it. They don't need to make it this big, which I think as adults we do a lot. We say, well, I have this problem, and I really want to, before I can address that, I have to make sure I address all these little other problems on the side. It has to be perfect, and I have to create my business plan. I have to do this. The reality is you don't. You just need to build something and start with that, and kids grasp that right off the bat. They have no fear. It doesn't have to be perfect. If they see a problem, they can fix it, and that problem is gone. It's really cool. I think we can all agree that this isn't a fad. So I went to get the address for Skookum's new awesome offices. And on their website, clearly says, we are a top job creator and a top workplace in Charlotte. We talk about workplaces. Number one, for kids, you should always get your kids into spaces like this. When we host kids camps, we always host in places like co-working facilities, places that have, you show a ping pong table and free cereal to an 8-year-old, they are sold. They want that dream and, a Razor scooter to boot. It's pretty awesome. The same can be said for us, right? Everybody thinks this office is great. And, I think about, as a female, I preach to other females all the time, like, wow, if you want a career that offers flexibility when you decide to have a family, man, this is it. You can take a few years and you can freelance, or you can work for a place like Skookum and probably work part of the time remotely. There are tons of places that let you bring your dog. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years you could bring a baby. It's great. it's a win-win for everybody, and talk about great money too. And I'm sure we all want those options open to both our boys and our girls as they grow up. I mean, wouldn't we all want flexibility and to work on a boat in the Caribbean? I sure would. And just so you guys know, like just for a little statistic, we just graduated a class in Atlanta on December 7th. Over 85% of our full-time graduates had job offers within 2 weeks of the program. It blew our minds, and it certainly blew theirs. There's so much need, and people are willing to, even if you guys or any kid that learns how to code, cool companies are willing to take on people that don't know everything yet, but if you're a good cultural match, they'll work with you, and you'll learn from them. So just a little statistic from code.org. Computer-related employment is going to rise to 22% by 2020, with the strongest demand for software developers. It's pretty amazing stuff. So we all know there are tons of resources out there, right? So you're probably all familiar with all of these. If you're not, you should be. Of these, my favorite is Treehouse, although most of the people I hang out with think Treehouse is very obnoxious with their videos, but I like it, and if you can stand it, I think it's easy to learn from. That said, I was just discussing with someone a second ago, when we started teaching kids, I was naive to all the different coding sites that existed for children already. And I can send you guys these if you want them later. You don't need to write them down. Scratch is a perfect example of that. But so because we didn't know any better, we started off teaching straight Ruby. We had no game plan, so what we did was dumb down the curriculum we had learned as adults and say, we'll just teach part of this for kids. And you know what happened? It was a huge win for us. We kind of bypassed all of these cutesy sites, which are great as an initial thing and good to do at home. We just started teaching our kids Ruby, and they loved it. They were writing programs, so we actually don't have sound, or I would show you a video, but I'll tell you a little bit about what they say and who's on the video. So Zuri is a 9-year-old that we met in Atlanta, 9 years old. And just so you guys know, we do 8 to 14, 12 being our sweet spot, so she's on the young side. She sits here and talks about the Ruby programs that she wrote, including Deaf Grandma. So we write a program, we try to keep everything fun, and it's a game to them. So you have to answer in all caps to make your grandma eventually stop responding to you, because she can't hear you unless you're in all caps. We do like Angry Boss, and we do even little things like, if you answer, what's your name? Oh, it's Betsy. Oh, wow, that's neat. Betsy, your name has 5 characters. And their minds are blown. It's that simple, and they're literally writing Ruby programs and loving it. Joseph is a guy from Charlotte that I wanted to show you mostly because he's cute and he's even younger. But a little bit about him. So he spent almost all of his time building an HTML and CSS site for dragons, and that was awesome. Like the entire time building a site for dragons. And he didn't get Ruby, and that's okay. Like they're the younger ones that we introduced to HTML and CSS, and that's enough. And one day they'll understand the other stuff. But you'll find it's funny. So I talk about this in a minute, but we introduced them to templates too. So for some instant gratification, I mean, everybody likes that. A drag and drop website that looks beautiful right away. That's great. But the funny thing is, the kids, they're not as into that for the most part as they are building their own site. And these sites are not that beautiful, but that's okay. Like they think they're great. A scrolling marquee and 15 dragons. That's all you need. So we also see a lot of the entrepreneurial kid in our camps. And granted, and I'll talk a little bit to this point in a minute, but most of our camps, of course, I think that the children that are signed up by their parents, so they have been shown some sort of interest in startup community or programming in the past. But we really get a lot of the entrepreneurial kid. And what's been really interesting for those kids is maybe they're less interested in Ruby, but they're really interested in launching something. They already have an idea. They want to get it to market. It's really neat to watch them. A perfect example is a kid named Ben from Atlanta. So all he wanted to do all week long was launch his iPhone repair business. He's 12. I have absolutely no idea if he can repair an iPhone, but he's definitely going to be the first person I call if I ever need that. So we worked a lot with a drag and drop for him, and I'll show you his little website. And I think you'll be impressed. So this is his website. He has hours that he has scheduled, 10 to 2. He's a busy guy. He has other stuff going on. You can tell him when you would like to come in and when you would like to pick up. So we get a lot of kids that want to start stuff. I mean, everything from, Ben with his iPhone repair business to a lot of them have a craft they make. Maybe it's a paracord bracelet or something like that, and they build little e-commerce sites, and it's very cool to see them launching their own businesses in, a matter of days. And so one of the things that a lot of, especially the girls, I think really enjoy is hearing about 3D printing and imagining, wow, one day I can print off my own shoe and my own jewelry. And so we introduced them, and I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with this, but there's a website called Shapeways where you can design your own stuff, and essentially they will then sell your product. So you make a 3D design for a really cool earring, and somebody over here might purchase it and it gets shipped to them, and it's a risk-free way to start a little company. It's great for the kids and it gets them very jazzed. And of course with 3D printing, one of the things I was going to say, I know you guys have a 3D printer here, and I'm sure would be happy to show some kids the 3D printing at any time. And I know there are a lot of other places too. I know Hackerspace, I think it was last Thursday, had an open night where you brought $10 and you got to print out a bust of your head. How cool is that, and how much would a 12-year-old love it? I mean, I want to do it. So yeah. So we have a dilemma, a big one. We've been talking about how we need to learn to code. Everybody does. We as a company can only host so many kids camps a year. It's not feasible for us to do them every single day in every single city in the Southeast. Our second kids camp in Charlotte is going to be in February at Packard Place. We already have an issue of we have some of our students from the first camp wanting to come back, and then we have new students. So we're at a crossroads. Okay, well, we want to introduce this technology to as many students as possible, but then we have students that are already at advanced level. How are we going to address both of these at the same time? And then our other issue is availability to all students. So we've already, the reality is, and I'm sure you guys can agree, when a 10-year-old begs to go to a kids coding camp over the summer, you're a real jerk if you say no. So we candidly have been accepting anyone that really wanted to come because these are awesome kids and they deserve to be there. But what I was going to talk about, so Hour of Code happened a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I actually spoke at a middle school in a rural area in North Carolina to 600 kids. And it was interesting because it was very different than what I had been doing, which is working with obviously parents that were really engaged and students, kids that already had an interest in this kind of topic. So this was different. So we spoke to 600 kids, and then they had the opportunity to sign up if they wanted to do a breakout session with us. They had 80 kids sign up, and of course we could only work with 40. It was really sad. I wanted to work with all of them, and it was really awesome at the same time because it just goes to show how excited and jazzed these kids are to learn this technology. And of course, once we got into the classroom, it didn't matter that these kids hadn't worked on this with their parents at home. All of their dads weren't engineers. They still got it, and they were still just as excited. And so what that tells me is we need to open this up to everyone. So how do we solve this problem? I think it's clear we need to get in our school system. I think you guys would all agree with that. Continued education in the classroom is critical. I just liken this to, what if I had been that kid that didn't take typing in high school? Our kids, if they don't take programming now, are going to be that guy that's pecking away 20 years later and really embarrassed. So now to do this, of course what we need to do is teach the teachers. Anytime we've been into a school, we have yet to come across a teacher that really knew any programming. And to be fair, it's not their fault. They're not being trained in it. So let's fix that. So I've already talked about one of the things I hate more than anything is people that say they're going to do something and absolutely do nothing. So we're going to promise as Tech Talent South, because number one, we're overwhelmed with kids camp requests, so we can't even handle them all. But for 1 year, we're going to meet any school or county that will sponsor a teacher to come to any of our programs. We'll meet whatever monetary number they'll come up with, we'll meet it. So if they'll pay for one teacher, we'll just comp another teacher. If they'll pay half of one teacher, we'll comp the other half. If we can get one teacher in every school coding, then of course they can teach the other teachers. And you can imagine, not only will they be teaching actual programming, but they can incorporate this into other subjects as well, which is very neat. All right, guys, so you can ask questions, we can chat back and forth, whatever you guys want. So, open door.
Tell me more about that hacker space. I'm kidding. How are you guys funded?
We actually bootstrapped. So when I was talking about being business-minded, that was one of the ways when I knew. So we toured the Southeast doing kids camps. We actually made a little bit of cash, and we used that to fund our adult program. And candidly, like now, we would really like the kids camps just to be free of charge. I mean, they always should have been. And now our moneymaker is, of course, our adult programs.
How many kids and how many adults have you run through so far?
We've had 15 adults. We'll have 40 adults after the next 8 weeks. And we're launching, so we start in Asheville. We start in Atlanta. We start in Asheville in February 24th, and we're working in conjunction with AB Tech there. And then we start in Charlotte in March and Raleigh-Durham right after that. So we'll probably have 200 adults by the end of 2014. We've done collectively kids, I mean, we do anything from 30 at a time to, 60 in a day. So we've done a lot of kids.
So do you guys have, like, for teachers, do you have almost like a curriculum package for them or something?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So with our adult program, of course, I knew better than to step into a classroom and try to teach people after I'd only known how to code for, 6 months. So obviously we hired really awesome people to teach, and Richard and I had been through a similar program, so we took what we knew and then we gave that to the instructor, and we built out our own curriculum for the adults. For the kids, Richard and I did it. We were bootstrapping, so we just put together a 5-day plan and went through it. And now, of course, we know how to adjust it for day camps and everything else, and we'd be happy to open that up and send it to any teachers that would be interested in it.
You mentioned the doctor in Ghana that's coming to the program. What's the background for your adults? Are they starting out with no experience?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. They kind of come from a couple different spaces. A lot of our part-time students, so we do a full-time and a part-time program. A lot of our part-time students have maybe worked on the edge of the tech community. Maybe they were at a tech firm and they were on the sales side, and they want to better be able to talk to the developers and just know a little bit more about that side of the business. And then we have, in the full-time program, we kind of have 2 spaces. One are the people that really want to dive right in. They're desperate to be web developers. I mean, a good example of that, so we had an OBGYN come to our last camp who had owned a firm, her own practice, for 17 years. She just got a little disillusioned, and she was ready for a change. She played around on Code Academy. She was like, wow, this makes me smile. This is really cool. I think I want to do this. So, she went through our camp and just really wanted to be a developer, die-hard developer. She came out and she accepted like a junior developer role for $17 an hour at like one of the coolest web dev firms in Atlanta. And she's thrilled. So then we have another set who are the entrepreneurial type, the ones 5 of our last 10 full-timers placed at Startup Weekend, and it's that crew. They're down there wanting to learn the lingo, and later they're going to outsource that to someone else, but they want to be their own CTO and enter into accelerators and start their own firms.
How many kids can you host at the 1 year?
So I think we'll have 3 people there, which I would think we could host at least like probably 40. Any more than that, we'd be struggling. I mean, you can imagine with kids, half the time they all have their computer, so it's it'll be my computer doesn't work, it'll be my computer doesn't work. And I didn't mention this, but you guys should all know one of the things we do with kids is we use Cloud9 development, which is cloud-based development system, so everyone is there on the same thing all the time, and it doesn't matter if you're PC or Mac. And of course, they can log in at home. We're not downloading software to their parents' computers. It works really well for them.
How do you keep them engaged after the program's over?
It's funny. It's a lot easier than you would think. We thought we would have to have a lot of breaks, like the Razor scooter breaks and ping pong breaks and all of that good stuff. But they're just really excited to mess with their own stuff. I mean, you have to be patient. You have to know if all of them might not get Ruby and one of them might be more engaged in like building their cupcake sale business, and that's okay. Like, we're totally fine with that. I was mentioning, an 8-year-old, which is a little bit on the young side for us, was in one of our camps in Atlanta, and she was this tiny, cute little adorable girl, and she spent, it must have been 6 hours straight picking what picture of a seahorse to put on her website. You can't tell an 8-year-old, well, it really doesn't matter. So, that entertained her, and that was okay. And she still built out a little site, and, you don't need to push them further than they want to be pushed, I don't think, at that age.
there part of their curriculum that focuses, or that has a facet of design attached to it?
Yeah. So we introduce a lot of different subjects, and in the week-long camps, we even do guest lectures. So we had someone come in and show them how to build like a very basic MP3 player in Charlotte, and we do like CSS animation and all of that cool, fun stuff. But in the very like one-day camps, we do HTML and we talk about CSS, but we really don't get into it hardcore. But yeah, so they spend a lot of time working on that, and then a lot of time working in groups on Ruby.
Can you talk about your placement and the 85% and how you achieve that?
Yeah, so of course when we started the program, we certainly didn't want to be a job placement business. I mean, I don't ever want to take someone that's going into one of our adult camps and say, you know, be inclined to push them towards a developer role because I'm going to get a cut when then really they should be launching their own thing. But, you know, at the same time, like we have a mentorship program, so we hook everybody up with a local mentor in the community based on what you want to do when you come out. Obviously, that's helpful afterwards. And also, you know, we take them on group, like company tours. So in Atlanta, we went to MailChimp and Pardot, which is Salesforce acquisition, and Triplingo. And, you know, they get to meet all those people. They meet all of our guest lecturers there. And, you know, when you're talking about a class of 10 to 15 people, you shake a hand, you pass your resume along later, and it goes pretty quickly from there. And, you know, we're happy to make any introductions we can, too, which was a big part of it, I'm sure.
What about the 15% that didn't get jobs?
So one of those was a PhD from Penn, and she went back to Pennsylvania. So I don't really know that, you know, we don't really have the network up there, and honestly, I wasn't sure exactly. You know, some of the people don't want jobs. They want to start their own thing. But we were pretty happy with that. And of course, this was as of December 7th. So we're still talking about if she got a job now, it's still great.
Did you get any figures on what sort of, like you mentioned the OBGYN with the $17. Did you get figures from other people that landed jobs? Was it pretty much all in that same vein, or was there a lot of variance?
Yeah, no, it was about the same. So we know someone took a position as a junior developer at Career Builder, so that was a little bit higher, but you know, still very much a junior role. And we try to manage expectations. I mean, no matter how you spin it, it's 8 weeks, right? You can only learn so much, and it's a tsunami of information for someone that's never been exposed to programming before. So, you know, they're all going in with the attitude that I'm going to prove myself in 6 months, and this is going to ramp quickly. I think they would have been happy with an unpaid internship, if I'm truly honest.
What's the background of your instructors?
Yeah, so now we will be on our 4th instructor as we hire for Asheville. So they all have a little bit different backgrounds. Our very first one that wrote the curriculum, his name was Yosep, and he had kind of a varied background. He worked for Career Builder for a long time and had several startups on the side. But what was so interesting and really attractive to us about him was that at Career Builder, he spearheaded an initiative where he stayed at night to teach developers new languages for kicks because he liked it. And on the side, he taught like Rails to just the general public for, you know, next to nothing money 1 night a week. And he just, you know, he was really excited to teach, and it made him a really great addition to our team. That's really what we look for. I mean, the thing is, you don't have to be the best developer in the world to be a good instructor. You have to be able to remember what it was like before you'd ever heard of GitHub or what a terminal looks like. And, you know, you have to understand, like, you have to be humble and be kind, I think, more than anything else. We also pay really well, which was helpful for us.
How do you choose the languages that you'll teach?
Well, to be blunt, Ruby was what we knew, so we didn't really have a lot of options. So that's what we started with. I think moving forward, we'll kind of look to our instructors for changes on that front. I mean, they're the ones really keeping up with that community. We're really comfortable with Ruby because, you know, it just is so easy as far as a language goes. So it's, and, you know, once you learn, one of the things we tell people when they apply, because some people will be like, well, I really want to build something in PHP. Well, that's great. Here's the thing. Once you learn Ruby, you'll be able to watch that treehouse video and get PHP. So you can kind of teach yourself. You learn to learn. Anything else? I'll be here eating pizza too, so you guys can ask me afterwards.